We have been lied to Jace.
What does 9.5 say?
I haven't listened.
Sure. What does, Julie,
glad you don't listen to
what
me.
does 9.5 say?
At least we have agree on something.
Yeah, we've been through that. I can't remember exactly.
Oh, you can't remember? Let me remind you what it says.
Yeah,
Then,
I've
when this... No, Julie, this is the time for education.
I know what it says. I'm educated already.
You don't remember?
The problem is trust.
You don't remember?
The problem is trust. I'm not trusting you. I don't trust
black
you
and
telling
white?
me the truth. I don't trust you telling me the truth.
Why? Because you're reading from the Quran?
Because I believe that the Quran does not have context. I believe the Quran doesn't have context. And
If this is the level of your approach to a religious text, then you are a bigoted individual.
Whatever.
A bigoted individual.
I'm trying to find the truth.
The hatred that comes out of your mouth is less than what is in your heart.
That's not hatred.
Yes.
How's that hatred?
Because you claim
You're judging me.
Muslims are all liars.
Remove the plank from your mouth,
I'm
from your eyes.
saying what I have discovered.
Apart from the ex-Muslims. All the Muslims are liars.
Yeah, I'm speaking the truth. I debate online a lot with Muslims, and I
But you can't debate
I know.
Muslims.
Yeah, because
here,
I don't know.
Speaker's Corner.
Because I don't know enough.
You are like a
Because it's
troll
on camera.
behind a
Are you
keyboard.
going to listen to me? I don't know.
Excuse me, Julie.
I know.
So let me read to you.
No, I'm not interested.
Okay, so
Because
when the
I've had
December
it
months
read-
are over,
I've had it read to me loads of
then
times.
kill the polytheist
I know what you're
wherever you find
Close the
them.
ears, that's fine.
Capture them,
You're
besiege
not
them,
telling me the truth.
and wait for them in every ambush.
Yeah,
But
I
if
know.
they repent
Yes.
and perform the
It's not what you
prayers
believe, though, is it?
and give the zakat, then leave their
Your
way
own scholars don't believe
free.
that. Do they?
Surely Allah is oft forgiving,
own
most merciful.
scholars don't believe
If
that.
any one of you,
You don't even know your
if
scholars.
I
if
do.
anyone,
Name one.
brother,
I can't right now.
Tuesday.
I need
I'm
to
reading
get
the
my
Quran,
book out.
subhanallah. If any one of the mushrikun, the polytheists, seeks your protection, grant him protection, so that they may hear the word of Allah, and then escort him to a place where they can be secure. That is because they are men who know not. How can there be a covenant with Allah and His Messenger, with the polytheists, except those who made a covenant near Al-Masjid Al-Haram? So long as they are true to you, you stand true to them. Surely Allah loves the pious. How can there be such a covenant with them, that when you are overpowered by them, they regard not the ties, either of kinship or of covenant with you? With good words from their mouths they please you, but their hearts are averse to you, and most of them are rebellious disobedience. They have purchased the ayat evidences with a little gain, and they indeed they are hindered. In fact, look, and they hindered men from God's way. Evil indeed is what they used to do. So with regards to this that you have realized and learned today, face to face rather than hiding behind the computer screen, that there was a declaration.
Yeah.
Look, would you not fight the people who violated their oaths and indeed to expel the messenger while they did attack you first? The polytheists broke the treaty, attacking first. They wanted to kill and expel the messenger. That's why the treaty is broken. When the treaty of peace is broken, you're left back in a state of war. But God doesn't just say, now go and fight them and kill them. God says, no, 4 months have been given for you to travel freely, make up your mind what you're going to do. Are you going to repent? If you repent after making that mistake, God will accept this repentance.
So repent is
And also those people who did not endanger Muslims, fight the Muslims, plot to kill the messenger, expel them, or break their treaty, fulfill the treaty until the end of this term. So this is the justice of Islam. Not only that, after the 4 months are over, you fight them. Who? Those ones. Not innocent people, not innocent babies and women and elderly, but fight those men. Right. But if they, after being fought by the Muslims, if they surrender and say, now, I'm not going to fight anymore.
Where's one of your scholars?
Excuse me, listen.
Okay.
If they resist fighting and they surrender, those Muslims were commanded by God.
Can I quote one of your scholars?
You're not listening, are you? They're commanded by God to stop any harm to them and escort them. You know what escorting means? Escorting them to a place of security so that No one else.
Can I quote one of
During
your
this
scholars?
transition of travel from one place to the place of security,
quote one of your
they can
scholars?
be harmed. So
I don't
what?
believe you.
Excuse me. The Quran. Don't believe me. Believe the Quran. So
Yeah,
the Quran
I do.
says,
I do.
take them to a place of security until they are secure.
Your scholars say
That
95
is
times
Islam which you are running away from.
Okay, so here's one of your scholars.
Who? Name him.
Maulana Abdul Alam Madoudi.
Maulana Abdullah Maududi.
Madoudi.
Maududi.
Madoudi.
Yeah, what did he say?
So he says.
Is it regarding this surah, yeah?
Islam is not. Islam is not a normal religion like the
that the
other
one you
religions
emailed her?
of the world, and Muslim nations
She got it from Daniel.
are not like normal nations. Muslim nations.
It's not her research. It's just got the text just now, so you're reading it.
Yes.
So you haven't researched it, have you?
This, yeah, I've researched this.
No,
yeah.
you got this just now from Mark.
No.
And Mark got it from Daniel.
No. I got this from a book I read actually.
Which book is that?
It's called Islam and Terrorism by Mark Gabriel.
Oh, by non-Muslim.
By Mark Gabriel. He's an Egyptian Muslim.
Non-Muslim.
Egyptian Muslim. He changed his
Is he
name.
still a Muslim?
No, he's not.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
That's why I believe
That's fine.
him.
That's why do you lie? Why do you always take your source about Islam
he
from
was not a
non-Muslims?
Muslim.
I've noticed this with you,
He was
Julie.
a Muslim.
Doesn't matter.
Julie, I've noticed one thing. You take all your knowledge about Islam from non-Muslims. Why is that?
Because they tell the truth. You guys don't tell
So
the truth.
does
You don't tell the truth.
tell me this? Does Bart Ehrman, the ex-Christian, tell truth?
Who?
You have never heard of Bart Ehrman?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Does he tell the truth?
I don't know. I assume so.
You know, earlier you said that there were very few
don't know him.
differences in
I know
the
him.
5,000 or so manuscripts. This is what Bart Ehrman says. He says, moreover, the vast majority of Christians for the entire history of the church have not had access to the originals,
Yes, we do.
making their inspiration. This is Bart
I've
Ehrman.
got access to the originals myself.
Really?
Right now.
Which year is that?
Well, the manuscripts are about 350 AD, well before
Exactly,
Islam.
4th century.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what early.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 300 years before
Listen to what
Islam.
I'm saying, so
300
you'll
years before
hear.
Islam.
Julie, listen. Moreover, the vast majority of Christians for the entire history of the church have not had access to the originals, making their inspiration something of a moot point. Not only do we not have the originals, we do not have the first copies of the originals. We do not have the copies of the copies of the originals, or the copies of the copies of the copies of the originals.
We've got more
What
copies
we
than
have,
that.
wait a minute, what we have, this is Bart Ehrman, not me. What we have are copies made later, much later. In most instances, they are copies made many centuries later. Like you said, the 4th century. And these copies all differ from one another. All differ.
Slightly.
All
Slightly.
differ
Minus-
from one another,
less
not
than
minor,
1%.
in many thousands of places.
Only very slightly.
Many
And
thousands
every
of places.
Bible
Wait a minute.
Every
Wait a
Bible references it.
Wait a minute, this is Bart Ehrman. He's a New Testament scholar, unlike you and me. So listen to him. These copies differ from one another in so many places that we do not even know how many differences there are. Possibly it's easiest to put it in comparative terms that there are more differences among our manuscripts than there are words in the New Testament. I'll rest my case. This is from Bart
okay.
Ehrman. I'll give you the source. I'll give you the source. Bart Ehrman
Okay.
in Misquoting Jesus. That's the book. Go and read
Okay,
it.
hang on. So I got.
So earlier, wait. Before I go on, earlier you said there were only minor differences.
Yeah, there are.
Are you a scholar of the New Testament?
I do my best.
Are you a scholar? Yes or no?
But how do you define
Are you a scholar? Yes
I
or no?
read it.
Are you? I read it too. Doesn't make me a scholar.
I got the Greek. I'll go back.
Doesn't
to
matter if you. Do you know Greek?
No, like
Exactly. So you're not a scholar. Just say it, Julie. It won't put you down.
I'm not
Look,
bothered. I
look.
don't know what you're defining as a scholar. So I'm
defining
saying that
Bart Ehrman, Dr. Bart Ehrman, who has got a PhD.
There's loads of people with PhDs.
Do you have one?
Yeah, but you're not.
No, but
Exactly.
I've
So,
read people who
wait a
have
minute.
got PhDs.
Julie, I'm comparing you, not lots of other people.
Yeah.
Not the fake PhDs like Jay Smith. What I'm saying is Bart Ehrman with a true PhD
But-
from a true university.
Yeah.
Now, Bart Ehrman said that
could've
there are
come up
many
with facts,
thousands of manuscripts with many thousands of differences between the manuscripts. In fact, all of them have differences. Now, let me ask you this, Julie. You said the earliest manuscripts available to you of the entire New
Okay.
Testament is the 4th century. How will you fill the gap from Jesus 350 years after Jesus? Tell me, how would you know
Because-
there were no changes made from the copies of the copies of the copies that were made?
Because we
thousands
have,
of
because
them.
we have all the copies of the copies.
Yeah, but do you have the originals?
We have the copies of the copies. So
They're all different.
So there's.
Do you have the originals?
Let me finish. There's slight differences, so therefore they authenticate the original.
No, but how do you know there's slight differences if you don't have the originals?
we
They are
do.
not slight
Well,
differences.
yeah, no, but
He said there are all differences. They're all different.
So 300 years on, if people made copies of copies of copies when they were written, and now we have those. this many years on and they don't contradict each other.
How do you know they don't contradict? You don't have the originals.
Because we got them.
No, but look, if you have a copy, listen to this.
So listen, if
No,
I
no,
write,
Julie, I don't think you understand.
No,
Listen
you
to
don't.
this.
You
Imagine
don't
in the
understand.
first century, imagine this, in the first century, if a copy of the gospel is made,
Yeah.
yes, then you lose it.
No, thousands were made.
Listen, I'm giving my
Thousands were
perspective.
made.
Correct
I'll
me
give
if
you
I'm
mine.
wrong.
Okay, thousands
Okay, I
were
don't
made.
want to know your perspective. Listen to mine now.
You
First,
haven't heard my perspective.
well, I will wait for your perspective after if you let me finish.
Okay, go on
So
then.
imagine in the first century, a copy of the manuscript was a manuscript of the gospel was made.
Yeah, it was
Somebody wrote it down. Yes.
Yeah.
We don't know who wrote it down. Then this copy got lost. Then you find another manuscripts 300 years after that. Now, if the original copy was lost, how would you know that copy which is in the 4th century corresponds exactly, or even minor differences or major differences, if you have lost completely the first original manuscripts?
Well, one that's not.
Wait, Mark, let Julie speak, because I said I'll give her a chance.
Interesting point.
Good.
Interesting point.
Because that is what Bart Ehrman is saying exactly. Even if you had copies of the copies of the copies of the copies, the important thing is,
I know.
really?
I'll go back and research.
Okay,
I'll
go
go
on.
back and research it.
I'll give Mark the
I'll go
chance.
back.
Yeah, thank you.
Go research it.
So first of all, during the 1st to the 3rd century,
Yeah.
this is when we had papyrus, and as we know, that is a very non-storageable form of written
It's perishable.
text.
It's perishable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, very perishable, yes.
But we have older
so let me,
manuscripts
so let
from
me,
that.
let me explain to what happened.
So that
during
doesn't really matter.
so during that 1 to the 1st to the 3rd century,
Yeah.
not a lot was preserved. But what we have got preserved are fragments. And there's quite a lot of fragments, but I do appreciate they're only fragments. We
What's the
don't have-
earliest?
Actually,
let
it's
me-
a fragment of John, isn't it?
Right,
Yeah, what's the
there's
earliest?
quite a few.
1870, I think.
No, it's not 80, 70. There's nothing from the 1st century, trust
Yes,
me.
yes, there is. We have got fragments.
sure.
of the
Really?
first
What is it called?
I don't,
First
know, I
century?
don't know the name of it, but
think
yeah.
it's in
Mark, trust me, if
Yes.
you had the
It's
1st
in
century
the
manuscript of the
museum,
Bible,
isn't
you'll
it?
be the richest
No,
man.
no,
in the
no.
world.
It's in the
Fragments.
museum. It's in the museum.
Even fragment, even
yes.
if you had a
As a
fragment.
small
Yes,
fragment
yeah,
of
Yeah,
John,
small
yeah.
the
fragments
one that you
of
guys
the
are talking about, I know, it's called the P52.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is in the John
And before we do
John
that.
Rylands Library. You know when it was dated? Late 2nd century, early 3rd century.
Yeah, but we're
Please,
talking
go,
about
guys, go and do your homework.
Right, so yeah.
So what is the earliest manuscripts you said? Sorry, what's the earliest fragment you think you have?
They estimated about 79 to 10.
No, I'm talking about the fragment, not when it was
Yeah,
written
yeah, yeah.
apparently.
Yeah,
Name
fragment,
speed,
yeah.
name
You have a
speed.
fragment from the 1st century. What
Name speed.
what is
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Name speed.
No one has heard of it.
Name speed. Oh, sorry.
I know you're getting angry, Julie.
That's not quite. We
Dude, you're assaulting.
You're getting triggered now.
No, that's fine.
Where did you get that
One
information
second.
from?
I'm happy to provide that information. I don't have access to hand.
Where did you get the information from? Dan Wallace?
Yes.
No, I don't know.
Let's
offhand.
Look,
But I provide that.
Mark,
it's a
wait,
secret.
wait, you haven't done the whole
Let
work.
me, no.
79,
Let me
You
speak.
guys are terrible.
Yeah,
Let
yeah.
it go.
This is
Go on.
all
without,
lies.
without the
Say
continued
what you're
cutting.
going. Say what you're gonna say. Say what you're gonna say.
Can I start to finish without
Yeah,
interruption?
yeah.
From where, please?
So,
but you have to give
I
us
don't
all-
know
Let him
offhand, but I'll
finish.
provide that
Let him
information
Okay,
for
bring
you.
it then.
Yeah, we'll
Let
bring
him
it.
finish.
But
I'm
there's no
happy
point in
to.
telling something which you don't know about.
No. It doesn't mean I don't know. I just haven't got the information to hand.
Yeah.
But I have memorised at
Go
least
on,
what I've
say
read. What I did find out is there are fragments, albeit not much, of the 1st century. But what I'm also
it
trying
publishable?
what-
Is it
Let
published?
him
Can I-
finish a sentence.
I will provide.
Now
that
you realise how it
information.
feels not
Yeah.
finishing something. Yeah?
So it's not going to help
Fair
each other.
enough.
We
Take
just
your own
go down
medicine.
the
Let
same.
Mark finish, go on.
Right.
Go
So
on.
anyway, so that's the first thing. The second thing is.
Sorry, what was it I didn't hear? Can you repeat
Yeah,
that
so
again?
we have got fragments around the 1st century.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, I
You're
can provide that next
100%.
time. I'm providing that next time.
Trust me.
Right.
Next time I see you, and if you don't provide, can I call you
Absolutely.
someone who's not credible, like Julie calls us
Absolutely.
liars? I wouldn't use the term liar because you're saying
Anyway,
it out of ignorance,
let me
maybe.
please finish
I
my
won't be
point.
that blunt.
Let me finish
You
my
said what you
point.
had to say.
So during the 1st and 3rd century, of course, because the papyrus has not been quite perishable, there hasn't been a lot preserved. However, let me just explain.
Okay, sorry.
So that is one of the only issues we've got. Obviously, the Quran came along. You had the parchments and much more, sustainable text, and we
yeah.
have the same thing from the 4th century when that was